Quite vividly. It was September. It was a cool yet sunny day in September of 1999, and I was in college. I was on campus, and I was walking back to my dorm, and I had this melody in my head, these lyrics, and I wanted to get it back to my dorm room so I could write these things down. And I basically, here's the way it works. There's this girl, okay, and she had captured my heart, and I wanted to write her songs. I'd been writing things for her, but I'd never shared those songs with her. And so I got back to my dorm room, grabbed my journal, and started writing down these lyrics. And I then grabbed my tape recorder. This is 1999, guys. This is before Y2K. Like, we didn't know what was going to happen, okay? Do you guys even know what Y2K is? Yes. Some of you are like, I should say yes, but I really don't know. That was when they thought all the computers were going to crash and everybody was going to lose everything. Nobody knew in 99 what was going to happen at the stroke of midnight in 2000, okay? So I recorded this melody that was stuck in my head that I had been writing these lyrics to because I wanted to tell this girl that was so special to me. I wanted to tell her that through song. And I had this beautiful idea. I was gonna like finish writing this song, and then I was gonna take her on a date. Right? I'm going to take her to a park and have a picnic, and I was just going to play this song just for her because it was her song. It wasn't anybody else's song. It was just for her. And I had this plan in my head, and I shared it with my roommate, and because I needed his assistance in executing this plan. And it was at that moment that he hijacked my plan because he heard the song, and he's like, "Oh, no. This is not something you do just for her." He goes, "This is too Rico Suave. I want in." And suddenly, next thing you know, my plan to take this girl to a park and play this song just for her became him getting a hold of everybody and literally tons of people going to the girls' dorm lobby and inviting this girl into this space where I would then sing this song for her with a group of guys playing it with me, okay? And her roommate, who's a crazy missionary in Romania right now, helped coordinate this. And basically, here's what happened. She comes out into the lobby, and there's, I kid you not, like 60 or 70 people circled up, and there's a row of chairs. I'm sitting there with some guitar players, bongos, like percussion and all this kind of stuff, and then one empty chair in front of me and all these people, okay? And this girl has got the look of terror on her face because of what she is walking into. And I remember as she's approaching, her heart just looks like it's like, "What are you doing?" And all I could think to say, I stood up and I whispered to her, "I don't have a ring in my pocket." You're like, that's pretty romantic. But amazingly enough, the sense of peace washed over her. I invited her to sit down, and I played this song for her. Actually, not that song. I don't even know if we try again. He's pointing at it.
There's this girl,
see,
that I know, that I see in my dreams at night. See her smile, hold her hand, touch her face, and now she gives.
Okay, that's good. All right. So, in that moment, all I wanted to do was tell this girl she had captured my heart. Now, several years later, that song has been played at weddings, dozens, and all that kind of stuff. It's been on the radio, all these things. And whenever I'm in trouble, I'm always like, hey, I wrote you a song. And it gets me out of trouble. Tonight, we are talking about engagement, okay? I did not have a ring in my pocket at that point. Here's the deal. We're talking about engagement. We've been walking through this series. My name is Ben, for those of you that are like, I don't know what's going on right now. Welcome to the return. We've been in this series called Life+Love, and we've been unpacking all of the significant seasons and stages of what it looks like to live life in love and wrestle with love and move through these stages, okay? So everything from being single to dating to now engaged and then married. And the reason why we're talking about it is because we've got to navigate it best. We want to navigate it with a healthy, holy framework and posture. We want to grab a hold of the vision that God has for it in each season. And so, because here's the way it plays out. The overwhelming majority, like 92% of your generation, wants to be married. There's a strong desire to be married. The majority of you in this room will be married. And the majority of the majority will be married in your 20s. That means it's coming up, right? And some of you are like, no, it's not. Like, no, it's not. Some are like, please, right? Like, there's a whole range of emotions in all of this. And so most of us, because of that, we've got to be able to move through these different stages, these different seasons. And what we've been saying every week, and I'm beating this drum, simply this: if Christ is not the center of you, he will not be the center of your relationships. If he's not the center of you, he can't be the center of your relationships. We must be in right relationship with God before we can be in right relationships with guys and gals. Okay? And so through these stages, through these seasons, God is grooming us for something. He wants to secure an undivided, undistracted devotion to him through these seasons. And last week we talked about and learned about who we date and how much that matters. That the gap between being single and being married is this treacherous territory of all kinds of joy and excitement and fears and anxieties and the train wreck in between called dating. Okay? And like what we talked about is that through that, we've got to remember that this is a process of evaluation that you move through. It's not a status that you arrive at and you just sit there in it. You've got to continue to move through it. And then there's decisions all along the way through that. But there comes this point where you've made enough decisions of evaluation that you are ready to move into a sense of union. This point where there's confidence in one's character, confidence in one's chemistry with you, between you and this other person, that there's character and chemistry. And the focus becomes now towards the complexities of blending and bringing two lives into one. And that's crazy stuff. For some of us, we're like, I don't even want to think about that kind of responsibility right now. But the reality is, it has everything to do with how you're living your life right now. It has everything to do with it. But we call this season engaged or engagement. And we come to these points where we know chemistry is there, we know character's there, and then everyone starts asking things like, so, you guys have been dating quite a while. What you gonna do next? Right? And all the questions start coming like, what's the plan? You know, you guys are about to graduate. What happens after that? You've been dating for quite a while. And the next year, the friends start asking questions like, how do you think he'll ask you? Right? And then the moms are sometimes like, when do we get to start planning? Right? The reception or whatever. And then dads are like, you better ask me before he asks you. Wanting to know, do you have a job? Right? There's some key questions. We can talk about that later if you want to. But dads are thinking through a whole different lens. I've got to be an officiant at a lot of weddings and be the one to help marry some people off. And I'm telling you, my daughter, our middle, Calla, this precious little thing, she has been a flower girl twice now in weddings where I was the preacher. And I'm telling you, it is a hard thing to be the preacher man keeping his composure when his baby girl is coming around the corner dressed like this, okay? Yeah, and it's like watching life in fast forward, okay? That it's like, this is my reality. Fast forward, good heavens. We're going to talk about that here in a little bit, about the way we interact with parents and stuff. But the bottom line is this: engagement, it's not planning for a wedding. A season of engagement is planning for marriage. And it oftentimes gets consumed with like, oh, we got to figure out all these events and all this plan and all this kind of stuff for a wedding date. And the reality is there's so much more to be prepared for, and that is a marriage where two lives are coming together, but two families are coming together. Whether that's easy or that's messy, it's the blending. And so parents are often thinking from this frame of mind, you better do it right. Do it right. So it begs this question, how do you know you got the right guy, or how do you know you got the right gal? Like, how do you know? Like, how do you come to this place where it's like, I think it's time to move from this season of dating to, all right, I've done enough evaluating. It's time to move into a season of union. Well, I've got some thoughts on that. And so we're going to talk about that a little bit. And even that, how do you know that it's this like time to jump into the season? How do you interact with the parents? Because there's some conversations to be had. So let's jump in on this. I've got a list for you again. Number one is this: commitment. Commitment. So when you ask yourself, how am I supposed to know when it's time to move out of the season of evaluation? Commitment. When you see a sense of deep internal commitment to just stay together. All right? This deep resolve to make it work at any cost. Now, again, this is trusting. When I say it this way, you got to remember, I'm talking through the lens of there's already firmly in place chemistry and character, okay? I'm not saying like, no matter what happens, stick together, all right? These are things that you don't figure out after being engaged. These are things you need to figure out before you get engaged, okay? So this idea of a deep resolve to make it work, because you can see in each other a deep resolve to work through issues, to work through challenges. I want to be clear with this. There's a difference between wanting to work through challenges and issues and the ability to walk through and work through challenges. Here's the deal. Think of it this way. You may have the ability to endure something, but is that what you want? Like, I mean, think of it this way. I believe that I could endure being married to you. Ooh, nice, right? No, nobody thinks in that way. Like, it's not about your ability to endure. It is, do you want to work through these challenges? There's a difference between want and able, between want and can. So let me read something to you. Song of Songs. Hang out in this book too long, you're going to be all hot and bothered. So let me read some verses here. Just one verse right now. Chapter 8, verse 6. It says, place me like a seal over your heart, or like a seal on your arm, for love is as strong as death, and it's jealous. Its jealousy is as enduring as the grave. Love flashes like fire, the brightest kind of flame. Love marks us. Love marks us. It stays. Genuine love, real love, sticks around. It's not fleeting. It doesn't peace out. It grabs a hold of us. And it even says it's like death grip, okay? Like sometimes you're like, when you think of a death grip, you're like wanting to choke somebody out, right? Anybody? Am I the only one that wants to choke somebody out? Some of you are like, I know it's me. Yeah, it is you. Yeah, right? No, like it's saying that love, real love, is grabbing a hold of you and it does not let go. It is as strong as death. That's heavy. That's intense. It's strong and it holds on tight, because you got to remember this. We talk about our feelings all the time and how much we fall in love with people, and then we fall out of love when we want to do something different. Love is a choice before it is an emotion. Okay? Yes, it is an emotion, but it is a choice first to love. You build commitment through choices. I'm not talking about like really missing somebody really bad, okay? I'm not talking about like when they're away and you find yourself, I just miss them a whole lot. I mean moving beyond the attraction and moving to this resolve to be committed. It says that love flashes like fire, like a flame. And so when you're dating, you see the flames of it. You see the flames of a relationship where it's like there's all this attraction and there's all this excitement and all the butterflies, those funny feelings that you don't know what to do with when you're around that person. And what happens? If we don't develop coals, hot coals, embers, what happens? That fire burns out. And all the excitement and all the this and that fades away. If we don't develop hot coals, flames are fleeting and fire burns out and it's hot for a little bit, but then it's gone. That's why it is so dangerous to allow sexual intimacy into something before marriage. Because it's like putting lighter fluid on a fire. It brings all kinds of heat. It brings all kinds of passion, all kinds of excitement. But there's nothing sustainable because it's meant for the covenant of marriage. And so what happens is it literally redefines the relationship. That's why when we choose to live together or we choose to step into the other thing, it takes the divorce rate from 50% to 75%. To choose to step into that, you literally are stacking the deck against you of this relationship that you hope would last. You're making a hard job harder. But it's because we're throwing the wrong things on the fire. We're not giving the right fuel. And so no matter what the circumstances, when you have coals, even when there's no flame, there's still heat. And when those coals are stoked, fire is still present. You don't want to jump into a marriage that has flames of passion dosed with lighter fuel. You want deep coals. You want embers. So how do you know if you have that resolve? How do you know? We all want to know. Well, I think you got to wait and see. Like, what happens when drama comes your way? Like, what happens when things get complicated? What happens when things get a little bit more challenging? Do you still want to stay? Do they still want to stay? To stay put in the relationship? Again, this is through the context of that there's character and there's chemistry in place. Trials and temptations are going to bring to life, they're going to expose the difference between I want to make this work and I can make this work. It exposes all of that. And hardships and pain, I think it gives us an easy way to glean a level of commitment through something. So trials and temptations, it's going to bring that to light. Like, how badly do you want to be on this team? Every couple that I work with in the context of preparing them for marriage, when we sit down and we talk through stuff, I say the same thing every time. You are a team. You do not quit. You don't quit on God and you don't quit on each other. You are a team. You have to be able to stick together. If this Sunday marriage is going to live on mission together, you have to be a unified team. Let's read this next verse real quick. Verse 7, it says, many waters cannot quench love, neither can rivers drown it. If a man tried to buy love with everything he owned, his offer would be utterly despised. Think of it this way. Real love will resist temptations. It doesn't mean that you won't be tempted. It doesn't mean that you won't walk through trials or challenges. It means that real love will stick around. That real love has boundaries. Real love will resist temptations. So you got to wait and see. So, how do you handle arguments? How do you find yourself when you disagree with things? Like when you see maybe something about them that's kind of annoying, right? Something that kind of rubs you the wrong way, where you find yourself like, you see like a character flaw. When an argument happens, does it create just a crack in their character or a fault line altogether? Those are questions that you've got to be able to process. You've got to date long enough to experience some arguments about fundamental things. I don't mean fighting about petty things. Does it make you want to quit or long for someone else? Those are good questions to wrestle with. When you see in yourself and someone else a deep resolve to stay rooted with one another, no matter what the trials or temptations, you can have confidence. But if their old flame walks in the room and they can't handle it, you might need to hit the pause button, because it means there's more things to talk through. And people will often say things like, well, you just kind of know. You just kind of know. I don't know. I don't know if that's true. Honestly, I don't think you can completely know. Like, I knew that I loved Crystal way before I told her. I spent time making sure my heart was in the right place before those words came out of my mouth, because those words mean a ton. I knew that I wanted to ask her to spend the rest of her life with me in marriage way before I asked her. But I took time to think through this because I know what is at stake. So you got to take time with this stuff and look for deep resolve that they're not going to go anywhere, and neither are you. And maybe you find yourself asking questions like this. Should it be this hard? Should it be this hard? And you've got to count the cost. If it's deep resolve, if it's truly deep resolve, then it is worth the pain and hardship to navigate your way back to being together. And sometimes it takes time and it takes distance. I remember spending a whole summer apart from Crystal, and you're like, oh, you baby. I don't know. For me, I got to see her on a daily basis on our campus. And then to spend a summer away, this is back before the turn of the century, gang. Like you didn't get to talk on the phone. Like, it was expensive, okay? She was different time zones. She was 2 hours behind me. And not only that, like that's long distance. We didn't have cell phones. And you're like, what? Yeah, that's the world I grew up in. So for me, I went from getting to talk to her every day to talking to her maybe once a week. And that was expensive. But it made me say, you know what? I realized, I recognized I'd rather do life with her than without her. And it took a season of being away from her to recognize that. Because when she wasn't there, I could then appreciate all of the things that she was bringing into my life. So here's what I'm getting at. If you're 90% confident and sure of that this person is the one, then you can trust that. But if you're having 2 or 3 thoughts a day, man, I am annoyed. If you're 3 or 4 or 5, shut it down, okay? If you're the 8 or 9 times a day, you're I'd just soon punch him in the throat. You do not need to be dating, okay? I'm serious. If you are having those kinds of moments where it's man, this doesn't make sense, pause that. Because here's the deal. You want the covenant, the paper that you will sign, you want it to be a reflection of your heart. Because at the end of the day, all you have is your integrity. You want it to match up. So deep resolve says, I'm not going anywhere. I want this to work. Okay? Here's the second thing. Communication. Communication. You got to have commitment and you got to have communication. So at some point, you're going to need to develop the skills and the ability to talk. Talk through things. We can do that. We text all the time. No, talk. Communicate and be able to navigate conflict. In Proverbs 12:18, you can write this down. It says, some people make cutting remarks, but the words of the wise bring healing. So do your words cut? Do they cut deep, or do your words bring life? Do they bring healing and refreshment? Do they bring death or life? Because as soon as a ring goes on that finger, I'm telling you, there is a lot of work to be done. There's a whole other level of responsibility still without privilege. Things that you go into a mode. And if you've got friends that are engaged or have seen it, as soon as the ring, the pictures have to be online, right? That's the next thing. And then from there, it's we got to lock in a DJ, right? Then you got to lock in a venue, and we got to make sure that we've got a menu and all this kind of stuff. And it's we need a preacher, right? And then all these things. And you go into event planning mode for everybody. There are going to be moments of disagreement. You've got to be able to talk. And if you've never had conversations about complicated things before that, well, then you're maybe doing some things backwards. And so I don't mean fight. Let me clear that. I don't mean pick a fight. There's a difference. Disagreements happen because we're human. Fights happen because we're sinful. Okay? We're selfish creatures. Fights are when you have an elevated voice and you're name calling and you are looking to hurt with your words because you're more concerned about winning. Can you move through conflict and disagreements in a healthy way? When you disagree, do your words become weapons? Are you willing to wound the other in order to win? Those are red flags. And here's the deal. If you don't disagree, you're if you're in a relationship, we don't disagree, ever. If you don't disagree, you probably don't actually know each other, okay? You probably don't actually know each other. Proverbs 15:4 says, gentle words bring life and health. A deceitful tongue crushes the spirit. Does the way I speak to someone go sideways? Do I find myself communicating in the wrong way? See, when we disagree, we've got to be able to frame it correctly. And here's what I would say. Focus on their actions and your feelings. Focus on their actions and your feelings because you don't actually know their motives, okay? And it will keep you from accusing and assuming. Because there's a whole difference between saying, what you just did made me feel this way. From saying something like that to, you're an idiot for doing what you just did, okay? One will diffuse and one will escalate. There's a difference. Ephesians 4:15 says we're going to hold to the truth in love. So what are the true things that you can know? What are the true things that you can speak to? Because there's differences. You know, like Crystal and I'll give you a ridiculous example. I've probably told you this one before. That woman doesn't know how to use toothpaste. She brushes her teeth, let me clarify. She squeezes from the middle of a toothpaste tube. Anybody? Do you do that? You better get that right, okay? You're supposed to squeeze from the end. That's the point. When you squeeze from the middle, that doesn't make any sense, right? And some of you are like you're thinking about this. You learn these things in time. It was ridiculous to me. But here's what happens. You find a resolution. You talk through it. She has her own tube of toothpaste and I have my own. That's how you fix it. Here's what I'm saying. I believe true love finds a way to find even the annoying things as adorable things. When the things that are annoying to you become things that you find endearing, I think love is happening because it is a choice. Trust me, there's plenty of things that I do that I annoy my wife. Keep you here all night with that list. But she chooses to love me. Because if you're going to be a team, you have to be united. So, both of you will have something to learn. And this is, again, something I share with every couple that I'm sitting down with. Be a student of one another. Learn of one another. Learn from one another. Like having mutual respect and admiration for the other's character so that you can see yourself as a student, have a teachable spirit. And it'll allow you to serve one another first, because here's the deal. What if everybody, just think for a moment of any conflicts that you have, any disagreements you have. It doesn't even have to be with somebody that you've dated or are dating or want to strangle right now. But, like I've already said that a few times. I'm sorry, I don't know why. That's just, but think about it. Some of you are like, I hope he's still not talking about me. I might be. Think of it this way, though. What if you stepped into every disagreement that you have with the mindset of, I'm going to serve them first? I'm going to serve them first. And what if the commitment was so strong and the communication was so developed that whenever you disagreed, what would happen is each of you would look to serve the other first. You know what happens? You talk and you don't fight. And you may still disagree, but you find common ground. And there's a difference. It allows truth and grace to have room in the conversation. Here's a third area, another C, confession. Confession. You need to be able to survive a moment of confession. Proverbs 28:13 says, people who cover over their sins will not prosper, but if they confess and forsake them, they will receive mercy. We're all able to be transparent. Like when we complain, we're transparent. People can see through that. They can tell that we're immature in that when we're complaining about everything. To be vulnerable is completely different. To be vulnerable is allowing your guard down and allowing someone else to get close enough to you that they could hurt you, but they could also know you. The real you. We're only as sick as our secrets, and at some point down the road, you are going to have to be honest. And I'm not saying spill your guts and everything graphic, every mistake you've ever made in your whole life. What I'm saying is you have to be honest about your transgressions. You have to be honest about who you've been and who you are now. You have to think of it in the frame of mind. What do you want them learning about you from you instead of somebody else? And what is better for them to learn now than later? This is not date one material, okay? Clarity point. All right? Don't come out of the gates. Hey, can we go watch a movie and dinner? Talk about all of my mistakes? No. No, that is not when you do it. You don't do it date 1, you don't do it date 2, you probably don't even do it date 10, okay? You have to be able to build trust. And down the road, you will need to have this talk. If you do it too soon, you sabotage it. If you do it too late, you completely kill it. And this isn't conceal, and then emotionally vomit on them, okay? That's not what this is. You're like, oh man, like, right? This isn't an ongoing, like, over months. This is a couple talks with maybe a couple follow-ups. Because here's the deal, if it becomes something else, then you've maybe missed what needs to happen. I remember where I was and when I shared with Crystal who I was. I remember it vividly, and I remember the anxiety. I remember the, hey, I need to share this season of my life with her and lay it all out there. And I remember being met with love and forgiveness and grace and mercy. And I remember that, because here's what happens. When you confess, it signals that you trust this person. It signals that you trust them. It allows them to connect with your story. It allows them to know you for you, to forgive and to love you and to affirm you. Because I don't know if you can know love unless you're willing to be vulnerable. But I do know concealing past transgressions from the one closest to you is not a healthy way to start a marriage. If you can be present with the most broken parts of someone, and they can extend mercy, if they can know the worst there is to know about you and still love you, God will use that, and he will knit you together, and he will bond you, and it will become defining. And here's the deal, it allows them to love you with a Christ-like love, because that's what Jesus has done for us. Ephesians 4:32, Paul says, be kind, be tenderhearted, and forgive one another. Why? Because Christ has forgiven you. He sacrificed himself for us when we were at our worst. And here's the deal, if you don't survive that, consider that a grace afforded you. If your relationship does not survive that moment, consider that a grace. Praise God that you figured out now than later. The other side of marriage. You want a spouse like Jesus, someone who will see your brokenness and still love you. Number 4, we've got commitment, we've got communication, right? We've got community. Confession and community, sorry. Proverbs 11:14 says, without wise leadership, a nation falls. With many counselors, there is safety. We need wise counsel in our lives. We need something more than just our friends like, oh, you should do this. We need more than people chiming in on our Facebook or Twitter saying, oh, this is how you should handle this, right? We need wise counsel in our lives. So we don't need everyone offering their advice. We need trusted voices. You know, sometimes like when a relationship begins, like all these expectations kind of show up around it, or people are going to like, when they see that you're dating, they're going to want to chime in and say, here's how you're supposed to do it. Like, oh, when I was dating, this would happen. And all these things, all these opinions start swirling. And what happens is people are going to try and put your relationship in a microwave. They're going to try and speed it up so it can meet their expectations. And here's the deal. Nothing tastes good out of a microwave other than a Hot Pocket, and it's still going to burn the roof of your mouth, okay? You don't want microwave. You want a crock pot so that the right flavors come out, okay? See where I'm going with that? All these people are going to want to chime in on how you are to do this relationship, and you're like, Ben, you're doing that right now. Yeah, I am. Here's the deal. Surround yourself with trusted voices. Surround yourself with healthy marriages. Marriages that you can look up to. Marriages that you can go and have dinner with them and just learn and watch them, the way they interact. Learn of all the things that they've jacked up and learn from them. Because engagement is a leap of faith, but it doesn't have to be a blind one, okay? You're going to be blending finances. You're going to be blending family. You're going to be blending futures. All the new roles that it will be. And being married, all these things, there's a ton going on here, but you're trusting that your faith is already in alignment. And so once you have those areas of commitment and communication and confession and community of people around you, then comes the responsibilities of, okay, how do I talk with parents? How do I have that conversation? If this is what is next, because there's all kinds of things going on in here, the responsibilities. So you got to talk to parents. Let me say this. Proverbs 10:1 says, a wise child brings joy to a father. A foolish child brings grief to a mother. Don't be that kid, okay? Bring joy. Bring families together. Start it off right. Because here's the deal. Parents need to be able to see the same character and chemistry that you speak of. They need to be able to see that as well. They want to know that you are a responsible human being. Guys, can I talk to you for a moment? Right? They have to be able to know that you are capable of paying bills. They have to know that you are capable of providing. Because here's the deal. If your plan is to come out of the gates in her mom and dad's basement for the first year, that is not a plan, okay? That does not say, oh yeah, you can trust me. I got a plan. No, that is not what they're going to be thinking. I'm a young dad, but I'm telling you, so many couples talk about how dad's acting really weird. Ever since we got engaged, he's just acting weird. I'm going to tell you why he's acting weird, okay? Here's a little bit for you. When a child comes into this world, a dad begins to recognize that it is a very dangerous world. And this father will have a love for this child like no other. It is deep, it is profound love for this child. And the role becomes this: provide and protect. You stay away, because this is a dangerous world. And so what happens is this: a father will invest his life providing. A father will invest his life protecting this little girl. And dudes, you are still a threat until you prove otherwise. There's this kid named Kate in 2nd grade. My baby girl, Kyla's in 2nd grade. He's sending home candy. He's sending home love notes. He's sending home gifts. Talking about how much he likes Kyla. Thinking he's so rico suave. Let me tell you something. He's not. Okay? We gotta meet this kid. Here's the reason why dads act weird in this stretch. It is because they are coming to terms with the fact that their daughter is choosing to run to another man to meet their needs. Okay? So, gentlemen, never take that lightly. And ladies, remember that with grace. As a dad of daughters, I'm begging you on behalf of your fathers, remember that. Ephesians 6:2 says we're to honor our father and mother. That goes for in-laws too. And that means, to honor means that we're going to value what they value, that we want to know what they're doing with their lives. So that means you've got to meet them, you've got to know them, you've got to ask them questions. If you genuinely care to get to know them and say, hey, I recognize I'm not just planning to marry your son or your daughter, it means that our families are coming together so that you can celebrate what you can together. You can't really celebrate much if you haven't taken the time to know one another. My in-laws are amazing. They're absolutely amazing. I know why my wife is so remarkable, and it is because I know her parents. And I remember when it was time to ask Lalo and Land for permission. I had spent some time with them when they were here in the States, but they were missionaries in India. And I remember when it was time to ask them permission to ask their daughter's hand in marriage. And I had written another script, and even though I wasn't going to be face to face with them, I'm still I want to know this because I know the severity of the questions that I'm asking. And I will never forget making this phone call to India. They're 10 and a half hours ahead. Yeah, there's a half-hour time zone. It's in India, okay? And I call them. And I will never forget how expensive that call was. Oh my goodness. It was worth every penny. And I will never forget my father-in-law saying, you know, Benjamin, Crystal is our daughter. She is my baby girl. And she will forever be my baby girl. And we have poured our whole life into loving her and showing her what living for Jesus looks like. She's our only baby girl. And we've been praying that God would bring a man into her life that would love her well. And we believe that's you. And we're family. And I will never forget my father-in-law saying this: you will become my son. And I'm telling you, the dude has been treating me like a son ever since. He doesn't treat me like a son-in-law. He treats me like a son. And I'm telling you, it is good when families can come together. And I have chosen to yield so much of my life to this family, to learn from him, learn from them, to listen to them. And I've proven I'm responsible with money and I can provide for their daughter. I will never forget him saying, he goes, I won't do the Indian accent. He says, I was the stingiest person I'd ever met until I met you. And he's like, I am so proud of you. And I'm like, yes. Honor them. Honor them. When you go to talk with parents, honor them. When they say, I want her to finish school, you know what that means? It means this: I don't want you to screw up their life, okay? Honor them. It means you have the opportunity to tell them they are worth waiting for. So having that conversation, navigating that, I know that it's complicated, but you got to be able to think through, I need to do my homework. I need to plan budgets. I'm going to honor their parents because our families are coming together. Our finances are coming together. Our futures are coming together. And I remember all the anxiety and excitement of when I asked Crystal. And it wasn't because I was nervous of what she was going to say. It was because I knew what I was signing up for. And I remember being at Toys R Us. That's what I did. Went to Toys R Us. And I remember her saying yes. And she's been saying yes ever since. But it requires something. It requires commitment, a deep resolve to say we're going to work through whatever. It requires communication, that we're going to figure out how to talk through complicated things if we are going to stick together. It requires confession. It means that there can't be anything between us. Because if we're going to be a team and we don't quit on God and we don't quit on each other, there can't be anything. And it requires wise counsel, a community of people around you speaking into you. It's a complicated thing. It's a good thing. And it's worth it.